يعني you can simply remind all of the teachers to start the recording, so it's gonna be يا أولاد an additional reference or additional resource for you. ماشي. Later on, and after recording, the video will be uploaded to the Classera platform and gonna stay over there for 20 days. ماشي. طيب. So here is the world as we know it nowadays. How many continents?
7.
7 continents. And how many oceans? It's general knowledge يا أولاد.
7, I guess. Or
6,
7. 6
6
oceans.
ولا 5
6.
6.
7 continents. And how many oceans?
5
6 oceans.
6 oceans بس.
1
Oh, 5, sorry.
Pacific,
5
Pacific, Indian, Atlantic, and
Arctic 4.
so they are
4 oceans.
4 oceans.
Arctic,
ماشي.
Atlantic.
طيب. And of course يا أولاد, this is the world as we know it nowadays. And inshallah later on when we go further in our course, I will show you that this map that we know nowadays, the normal map, has some mistakes in it. ماشي. And they kept it this way. Later on inshallah I will show you some of these mistakes. ماشي. But if you have a look here, you're gonna see something else. Regardless of the details, يعني do not bother yourselves يا أولاد with all of these details here. ماشي? It's not our issue. This is the first drawn map of the world, by the way. This map goes back to the 15th century. ماشي? This is the map they were using. But what's important to me in this picture or in this map, يا أولاد, by the way, the philosopher or the scientist who made this map, who drew this map, was a Greek one, and his name was Ptolemy. Starts with a P, not with a T. ماشي؟ طيب. What are these figures doing at the bottom and at the top of this map? Can you give me a clue? Can you give me any hint?
Maybe
You
for
can-
their 4 directions.
4 directions?
Yes, like the person up is north. The person to the right up is northeast or something like that.
يعني مثلا, for example, let's take this lady here. So this is the direction, and this one will show me this direction, and this one will go this way.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. طيب يا أولاد. Who else? Have a closer look at them. What are they doing?
The
What are they
rulers
doing?
pointing
Putting
toward
water
the
next time.
Water?
Mister, they're blowing air.
pointing.
Blowing air. It's not water. They are simply blowing air. طيب, what's the difference of blowing air at this direction and
The
at this
direction of
direction?
Gravity.
Mister, maybe what's the direction?
دول اللي هم السيز بتطلع كده فالويند بيطلع من نورث.
Thank you very much. This is the direction of the wind يا أولاد. They draw this map, ماشي, and after drawing it, they simply noticed that at these specific spots in the map, they gonna face strong winds. ماشي? So this is the direction of the winds. ماشي? This is from their own point of view. طيب. And also, by the way, they used to believe, according to their myth over there, they used to believe that over there, outside the known world, there is some kind of freaky sea monsters that they will eat you alive if you have the courage to bypass this line. This was according, by the way, to their tradition, to their myth.
Like the
ماشي?
Kraken.
Sorry?
Like the Kraken that he said, like A sea monster cracking.
Yes, yes. They used to believe that they have a lot of sea monsters, by the way. It's recorded in their traditions and in their culture, by the way. And they used to have a lot of stories regarding this issue. ماشي؟ طيب. If you remember, I have already told you, regardless of these details. So here is, if we're gonna enhance this map a little bit, يا أولاد, it's gonna be this way. ماشي? Only 4 continents: Africa, Europe and Asia, and Australia. So regardless of the names written here, no problem, by the way, it's not our interest. Just to show you how the old world looked like. ماشي? Only 5 continents. طيب. We are talking about, يا أولاد, the 15th century, immediately after the Renaissance era. And I think that last year you had stopped at this point, or you have already studied the Renaissance era, right? Or not?
What it was talking about?
Renaissance,
Reference.
Renaissance, Renaissance era. You didn't study this title last year, يا أولاد?
No.
I guess no.
After the Renaissance era over there in Europe, there was a discovery, a spirit of discovery and innovation in Europe. طيب. What's important, or what was going on in the world in the 15th century? Simply, there was some kind of a lucrative trade or a trade with China. The Europeans simply had some kind of trade with China. They used to get, يا أولاد, some expensive goods from China, and they simply transported to Europe. Can you figure out what are
Silk
these
Road?
goods?
Silk Road.
Yes, exactly, the Silk Road. Do you know anything about this issue, about this road?
Mister, I know that it was a very famous trade route
Yes.
for Asia and through Asia and Europe.
So the Europeans simply go through this route or route to get some kind of goods from China and India to the European and introduce it to the Europeans. طيب.
Yes.
What do you think these goods can be?
Silk,
Silk,
uh,
spices.
spices, coffee, rices. They used to
لا
from
لا
China.
لا 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 لا. Leave the coffee for now. I will tell you a story about the coffee beans. Leave the coffee for now. So the silk and the spices, and also some kind of precious stones that they used to have it in their jewelry. Okay? طيب. If you notice, the Europeans will simply, especially Italy, يا أولاد, not all of the European countries, especially Italy. Italy was getting control of this Silk Road. They simply established this Silk Road. But if I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, you're gonna see a lot of violet dots. What are these dots? User
Maybe the
finder.
places where they stop and trade.
These are cities.
Not, yes, they are the cities they must pass in order to go to Europe or even to China. They must stop at these points, ماشي, to get some supplies, some food and water and so on. ماشي. So every single trip, they must simply have a stop at these dots. ماشي. طيب. Let's imagine, for example, that you are living in Iraq at this point of time. ماشي? When the caravel simply stopped at this point, what do you think the Iraqi government at that time will do to them? By the
Take
way,
them,
by the way,
take money.
the Muslims at that time were taking control over Iraq because of Al Khilafah. طيب. What do you think they gonna do to the caravel? They will simply steal the goods from them, do not offer
no,
them
they
food
take money.
and water and so on. Yes, tell me your suggestion, ya ولاد.
Yeah, Master,
That's it,
maybe
Mister.
they will take from
One
them
by
money
one,
each
one by
day.
one, so we can. Unfortunately, because I'm sharing you this screen, I cannot see who's raising his hand. So please, yani, can you help me in this issue? Yes. Who was?
Mister,
Maybe
صلاح raised his hand.
Wait, Abdurrahman. Wait, Abdurrahman. Someone was talking. Yes, sorry. تفضل.
yeah, Master, maybe they will take from them money to stay.
Exactly. They will simply charge them. Yani, use your mind a little bit. This is your land. This is your country. And they are simply using your country. They are passing your country. So obviously, they will charge them. طيب. Let me give you another example from our modern world. ماشي? We are here in Saudi Arabia. ماشي? Maybe some of the people living there in Emirates wanna go to Egypt. For example, they will go by using their own cars. ماشي? So they wanna travel to Egypt. They must pass on the Saudi land. ماشي? In order to go to ride a ship from this point to go over there to Egypt. طيب. There are some fees must be paid to the Saudi government in order to bypass the Saudi premises. Like, for example, I think the fees can be 2,000 Saudi riyals, and they have the time limit for maximum 4 days. So after these 4 days, they must renew their permit in order to stay in the Saudi premises, or simply they will be fined. So the 4 days are more than enough to bypass this land. ماشي? So it's a normal issue. You will collect some fees from the people who want to simply use your land. So when the caravel simply moving from China or India and they want to go over there to Europe, they must stop at every single violet point here. ماشي? By the way, they used to have 3 Silk Roads, not only one. And the 3 routes, يا أولاد, or roads were controlled by Italy and only Italy. ماشي؟ طيب, try to imagine here. I have already bought some goods from China, but I must pay a certain amount of money on every single dot here until I reach Italy. What's the result? The result can
Master,
simply be,
they
yes,
will stop the Silk Road and they will
they,
try to find another route.
exactly. But my point, this is the ultimate goal, by the way. They want to look for
Yeah, that's
alternatives.
what happened, I guess.
But what really happened, يا أولاد, during the usage of the Silk Road, that when the goods arrived at Italy, these goods were expensive because simply when they had to apply all the fees that they had already paid in all of these points, they must add it to the price of the goods they had already bought from China. So the result, when the goods arrived at Italy, the goods were expensive. But يعني مثلا we can have a look at these goods at some kind of a luxury life. So what's the harm will be done if I didn't buy some precious stones, for example? I do not need it. I'm not a wealthy guy. I do not need a precious stone. I do not need a specific kind of jewelry. I do not need it. مثلا. But there are some essential goods to all of the Europeans at that time. Something related to the spices. And by the way, the spices at that time, they do not use it to flavor their food. يعني مثلا the usage of the spices nowadays يا أولاد is simply to spice in our food or to flavor our food by the way. يعني but there is a specific kind essential for our food. Try to imagine يا أولاد that you are eating something without adding salt. It will be simply tasteless. And believe me, it will be tasteless without salt. طيب. But back to my point of view, without even having salt, no problem. They can eat their food. But the usage of salt was so important to them. And this usage, يا أولاد, was not to season or to flavor their food.
So they used it
Mr.
as
You
Was
have
it
any-
was it preservative to preserve their food?
Exactly. Thank you very, very much. Of course, nowadays, يا أولاد, if we want to preserve our food, يعني مثلا after eating your breakfast or lunch, if you have some leftovers and you want to keep it for later on, you will go simply and keep it in your oven,
Or
your
fridge.
refrigerator. Thank you. You will simply keep it in your fridge in order to use it later on. But at that time, the 15th century, أولاد, there was no electricity. There was no fridges at that time. So they used the salt to simply preserve their food. Got the idea? Got the importance of the salt at that time?
Yes, mister, it was like the currency.
Yes, exactly. Do you know, can you imagine that in some specific countries in Africa, they used to trade salt with gold? يعني they will go simply, and I'm talking about the Europeans, they will simply go to any African nation and they will trade them. They will give them gold in order to get salt. Of course, يعني salt nowadays يا أولاد is priceless, right? You can get simply, there is some kind of salt, rough salt, not the soft one that we are using for seasoning our food. There is some kind of rough salt that they used. يعني مثلا maybe if you are familiar with cooking, you know what I'm talking about. There are some kind of food that when you buy some kind of chicken, in order to wash it, you will not wash it with pure water. You will simply wash it with a specific kind of salt in order to get all the smells out of this chicken. It's called rough salt, not the soft one. Maybe for 5 kilos of this rough salt, you can simply buy it with 3 or 4 reals or something like that. So nowadays, salt is priceless. But back over there at that time, it was an expensive good. So salt at that time was expensive and it was important يا أولاد to their lives because of, who can help me here? Please يا أولاد, do not let me talk
Preserving their
to
food.
myself.
Preserving
Thank you. Thank you very much for food preservation. طيب. Who was taking control of the Silk Road يا أولاد?
Italy.
Italy.
Italy. طيب. What's the result of taking control over of this Silk Road? What's the result?
Expensive goods.
The prices of all of these goods imported from China, of course, it was high prices, it was expensive. And another result, Italy was the richest nation in all of Europe. Why? Because all of the benefits from this Silk Road will go directly to the Italian nation, will go directly to the Italian king at that time, to the Italian treasury. So Italy was the richest and the most powerful nation at that time. ماشي. I'm talking about the European nations, and of course, at that time, Europe was simply taking the lead of all of the world at that time. ماشي. So, do you have any questions until now, يا أولاد?
No, thank you.
No, thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
طيب. Of course, Italy was rich. طيب, what about the other European nations? Of course, they want a piece of this cake. Why we are not rich? Because simply Italy is taking control of the Silk Road? No. طيب, maybe one of you will simply say, why didn't the other European nations take the same Silk Road? مثلا to get the same,
Because they
to
were
use the
bypassed
same,
by-
sorry?
Maybe they don't want to think about that because they were bypassed by Italy.
طيب, let me give you another hint. Maybe, like Ukraine, for example. Ukraine can simply use this route without passing by Italy. They can use this route. There was an important issue here, يا أولاد. Nowadays, we are living in the year 2020. We have a lot of maps. We can simply Google search anything. And there is a specific bar in Google search about maps, related to maps. You can simply
Mr.
get a map for Lithuania, for example, for any single country. But back at this time,
They didn't know the specific route itself.
exactly, they do not know the way. They will be easily lost. Of course, يعني try to use your mind a little bit. You are at the top of the Italian government at that time, and you have the map. So you will simply share it with the other European nations so they can simply use it and they can be rich like you. Of course not. Of course not. Because you have already discovered this route and you know all the secrets hidden in this route. It will be your own property. You will not simply share it with others because this is your secret. This is how to be rich. You will not share this information with other nations, right? طيب. And of course, if any other nation will have the courage to discover this route or try to discover it, they will be, first of all, lost, and maybe they will be robbed out over there. And it was يعني مثلا it was some kind of economic activity that most of the people living over there in these countries, they used to wait, by the way, they used to wait for the caravels so they can simply steal them and kill every single human being in this caravel to get all of the benefits and all of the goods to themselves. Right? طيب. I think, يا أولاد, that you are done by 11:15, right? Let me see the schedule here. Yes, it's 11:15. So we're gonna continue, inshallah, يا أولاد, our lesson next tomorrow.